Kara Chase is a competitor on a grueling survival reality show called Solitude. Right from the start, she shares her experience during the first few days, facing a completely hostile environment and determined to endure until the end with the hope of winning $1 million and proving she can survive on her own. Next, we are introduced to the show's crew, who are mourning the loss of one of the participants. Candace, the group's doctor, asks who is taking medication so she can check on them in the morning. Bill mentions that it's participant Jack and states that he watched his confessionals. He also notes that Jack is having serious problems due to the altitude and reported hearing strange sounds at night. However, Candace dismisses what he says and jokes that it's just the lack of calories. Back to Kara, she mentions that sometimes being alone in that place isn't so bad after all. The producers advised against bringing personal items as it could lead to homesickness. Kara admits she understands this guideline but couldn't resist bringing a picture of her daughter. She kisses it and asks the child to wait a little longer. In the morning, Kara mentions she needs to complete some daily tasks, but first she needs to check her traps. When she gets there, she discovers that the bait is missing and the traps haven't been set off. Thinking the trap isn't working, she decides to test it. When she does, the trap is quickly triggered, leaving Kara intrigued. However, she remembers another trap and rushes to check it. Upon arrival, the situation is the same. The trap is intact, and the bait is gone. Frustrated, she steps back to reflect on this. She explains to the viewers that it's impossible for an intelligent animal to bypass the trap without getting caught. Kara comments that if she didn't know she was alone, she would think someone was trying to mess with her. As she expresses her anger, we notice that something is watching her from afar. The camera focuses on participant Jack, who has been in the challenge for 11 days, and shows an expression of exhaustion. He announces that he is quitting the reality show, which irritates Lenny and Bill. Bill contacts Candace to discuss Jack's situation. She observes that he remains silent, just staring into space, and suggests that he needs to go home. Bill mentions that he reviewed the footage and agrees that he should return. Lenny comments that he has never seen so many dropouts so early. Bill mentions that the forest is truly frightening and believes there are vengeful spirits of the Cree natives. Frustrated, Lenny asks him to stop with such talk and get back to work. Kara returns to her campsite and says she'll have to eat banana soup again. She is still pondering how the bait disappeared without triggering the traps. Infuriated, she wonders how she will face 9 participants without food. In a moment of rage, she knocks down an old log and ends up falling to the ground hopelessly. After calming down a bit, she notices something underneath the log. She picks up the strange object and starts unwrapping it, discovering that it is an old book. Inside, she finds a crucifix and a drawing resembling it. Kara puts the crucifix around her neck and questions who could have left that object behind. She then shows the item to the camera and mentions that at least now she has something to occupy herself with during that difficult time. At night, she highlights that she hasn't had a decent meal in days, and the effects are starting to show. With few options, she decides to flip through the book she found, believing it to be an old diary. She soon begins to read and discovers that the text dates back to November 17, 1811. Long ago, a family inhabited those lands, facing serious hardships with the cold and food scarcity. The diary's author writes about his determination not to give up, as his family is the reason he continues fighting. He introduces his wife, Maria, who is his support, and his little daughter, Anna, who is his source of joy. Unfortunately, Anna suffers from an illness, and her fragility weighs heavily on them all. By November 24th, Anna's formerly rosy cheeks have turned pale due to the illness. Even his wife, once so strong and resilient, now shows signs of weariness. The man writes about the difficulties of hunting. Each expedition becomes more desperate, and the empty traps seem to mock his anguish. The idea of sacrificing his horse as food crosses his mind, but he hesitates to make that drastic decision. The hope of spring becomes a mirage, increasingly distant. Kara decides to end the reading there, as her hunger is intense and she wishes to try to rest. Inside the cabin, she hears noises coming from the forest. She comments that it is a bit scary but convinces herself that they are just wild animals. However, she soon hears a strange growl approaching, and concern sets in. The noise intensifies, heightening her fear that something dangerous is near, which causes her to panic. Feeling breathless, Kara uses her asthma inhaler to compose herself. As she watches the creature approach, she considers pressing the surrender button, but hesitates and remembers her father's words of encouragement. The next morning, she wakes up and mentions that she had a wonderful dream, believing that day could be better. Kara begins to chop wood for the campfire, as her supply is running low. She explains that the production team wants them to keep filming, but she decides to do this task off camera. When she returns to the recordings, her expression is one of total despair. She shows her trap again, but discovers it hasn't been set off. Intrigued, she notices a decomposing rabbit nearby, which doesn't make sense. Shocked by the strange circumstances, Kara decides to check the other trap. To her surprise, she finds another decomposing animal near the second trap. Observing that the animal is full of maggots, she sees an opportunity, as these larvae could provide a good source of protein. However, the meat is in terrible condition, and the idea is risky. Still, with no food options, she decides to try to collect them. While doing this, something nearby deeply startles her, causing her to recoil. Although she cannot identify what scared her, fear consumes her. That night, returning to camp, Kara begins rummaging through her backpack in search of food. Not finding anything, she considers the option of eating the larvae she had collected earlier. However, as she brings the creatures close to her mouth, a wave of nausea hits her, making her shun them, declaring that the risk isn't worth it. Once again left without options, she decides to grab her banana soup and tries to taste it, but soon feels sick and ends up vomiting. The next day, the medical team organizes to assess the participants, but Candace informs Lenny that they were delayed due to a landslide. Lenny asks if she has any concerns about any participant, but Candace replies that everyone is fine. For her part, Kara claims that she woke up feeling well and believes that the food has given her energy. She then prepares to hunt something, but receives a call from the base. Bill warns that the weekly check-in will be delayed and explains that the road is blocked. Since she was the last to leave camp, she is at the end of the list. Bill asks if she is okay or needs anything, and Kara responds that she is managing. She resumes her search for food and finds some berries, which makes her quite happy. She also discovers some mushrooms, which she uses to prepare a soup. This is the first decent meal she has prepared in days, raising her spirits. Tired from the hike, Kara announces that she will need to rest a bit. Before sleeping, she expresses how lonely she feels and how much she misses her daughter. Additionally, she mentions her frustrated relationship and hopes that things will improve with this prize. Kara then falls asleep while something watches her from outside her cabin. Soon that creature rushes by, and Kara wakes up quickly, filled with tension. From the sound, she suspects it may be a bear and decides to leave the cabin to scare the animal away. Unable to locate it, she starts yelling to frighten it off and quickly returns inside. Kara comments to the viewers that it could just be a hungry animal and says she won't give much importance to what happened. She tries to sleep again, but now the silence bothers her. The adrenaline moment has affected her sleep, and she can't rest anymore. With no other options, she decides to read the diary again. The unknown man's narration restarts. Now on December 3rd, his daughter Anna is gone, and their hearts have broken together. He mentions that he will try to protect his wife at all costs. On December 4th, the man makes a terrible decision. His daughter has departed, but she left hope for them. At that moment, Kara's expression turns to shock, and she cannot believe what she reads. The man returned home with food, ensuring more time. He begs God for forgiveness for what he has done, for now his humanity is destroyed. Kara begins to feel sick and questions how they could have the courage to do that to their own child. Dragging herself out of the cabin, she starts to vomit while hearing a noise coming from the forest, staying on alert. The next day, another participant expresses her desire to quit, desperate, stating that she just wants to go home. Bill, surprised by the scene, quickly contacts his colleagues. Candace quickly responds to the calls but warns that she couldn't reach any participants, as the roads are very bad and they had to spend the night there. Bill seems concerned about something but doesn't mention what it is and just asks her to be careful. Candace questions if she should be worried about anything, but Bill says it's just his imagination. She jokes that in fact, he is the one who should be careful. as he tends to believe in horror stories he always tells. Bill says goodbye and once again advises them to be cautious. Lenny returns to base and ends up startling Bill, who was distracted. Bill then relays the situation to Lenny, who requests that he contacts the doctors in the morning. Bill asks if Lenny doesn't find it strange that so many people are quitting so early, noticing that the participants seem confused, as if something has affected their minds. Lenny admits it is indeed strange, but he prefers to believe it isn't a spirit. Bill agrees with his boss, but emphasizes this could be a possibility. Lenny comments that Bill has been awake too long, and asks him to rest a bit. Bill agrees and says he'll wait for more information in the morning. Lenny bids him farewell, making a joke about spirits, while Bill appears to be taking it seriously. Meanwhile, Kara wakes up in a bad mood, as she didn't manage to sleep the previous night. She states she needs to change the batteries in the cameras and checks her backpack for the equipment. However, as she searches for her satellite phone, she realizes she can't find it. In desperation, she begins looking for it, but has no success. Sitting down, she reflects on where she might have left it and considers the paths she has taken. Preparing herself, she quickly heads out in search of the phone. A few hours later, she says she couldn't find it anywhere and has no idea where it is. She panics because the phone is her only way to get out of there. She tries to recall all the places where she could have left it, but cannot think clearly. However, she remembers that the medical team arrives in 6 days and tries to calm down, believing she has some time. She decides to return to camp, and upon arriving, she uses her asthma inhaler. She mentions again that she has searched the entire camp without success while trying to find her phone. As she needs it to leave, she continues the search. At the base, Bill receives updates from the doctors. Candace informs him that all the participants who quit exhibited psychotic episodes. He asks how this is possible, as one episode may be understandable, but everyone at once is very strange. Candace cannot explain this and warns that she needs to hang up. Bill says goodbye and assures her he will inform Lenny about the situation. When Lenny arrives and asks what is making Bill so anxious, he explains it's the news from the doctors. Lenny asks him to continue, and Bill reveals that all the participants experienced psychotic episodes. Lenny doesn't believe this is possible, thinking they picked the weakest competitors of the season. Bill disagrees, and irritated, Lenny exclaims he can't take this conversation anymore and leaves the area. Back to Kara. She reflects on the diary she found and what Bill told her before departing. In a flashback, Bill advises Kara to be more cautious in the forest, and mentions that there is a legend about that place. Kara smiles and asks what that legend is. He asserts that he is serious, as the Cree natives believe in this story that speaks of vengeful spirits from the past haunting the forest, but Kara doubts it. Bill explains that every legend has a basis in truth. Back in the present, Kara suddenly panics and screams. During the night, she wakes up to use her inhaler and hears growls from outside. Despite her fear, she gathers her courage and leaves the cabin, but soon encounters a terrifying creature. In total despair, she rushes back inside and feels powerless because she doesn't have the phone. The next morning, the medical staff returns to camp, and Candace informs them that the second-to-last participant has quit. Lenny asks why, and Candace responds that he was dehydrated and hadn't slept for days, in a state of panic. Lenny comments that only Kara remains now. Bill requests to rescue her by helicopter, but Candace says that is impractical, as they have already tried. He asks what she suggests, and one of the medical staff proposes to search for her by car. Lenny thinks the suggestion is good, and asks how long it will take them to arrive. One of the rescuers tries to calm the situation, stating that they can get there within a day, but Candace explains that due to the main routes being blocked, it will take more than a day. Lenny thanks them for their honesty and asks them to rest a bit before leaving. Bill, worried about Kara, asks to go along, but Lenny refuses, as he needs him for communication. Meanwhile, Kara reflects on what she witnessed the night before, unsure if it was real. She believes everything could be due to exhaustion, as her mental state is fragile because of the program. To distract herself, she states she will follow her daily routine. She organizes her things and mentions she only has food for another 2 days, not knowing when the team will rescue her, as she has lost track of time. Following her usual routine, she picks some fruits and returns to the cabin. The next day, she seems even more shaken than usual and begins to go into a frenzy. She manages to calm down and goes back into the cabin, where she comments that her spare inhalers have disappeared, leaving only a little behind. She also says she lost her lighter and cannot let the fire go out. Suddenly, she begins looking for something and finds a photo of her daughter, becoming emotional and crying for the loss of the little one. She finds the phone, but it is damaged. In order to get out of that place, she needs to fix it and quickly begins to try. However, her mental state is already compromised and she cannot control her hands well. Desperate, she gives up on fixing it and starts to cry. Meanwhile, the rescuers are en route and inform that they have made a stop since it is dangerous to drive at night. Bill understands but expresses his concern for Kara as he cannot contact her. He asks them to hurry if they can to find her. Candace replies that she would like to do that, but the terrain is too risky and assures him they will do their best in the morning. While this happens, Kara tries to sleep, but the noises around her prevent her from doing so. Irritated, she demands the creatures to be quiet and to kill her once and for all, and upon saying that, silence returns. The next day, Kara decides she doesn't want to remain inactive and starts to chop wood. During the night, she chooses to read the diary again to pass the time. Now, on December 8th, a terrible curse has affected his wife. Her gaze has become terrifying, and her actions increasingly primitive. He wonders if this is divine punishment for his mistakes. He comments that the nighttime whispers persisted, and every word sounded like torture. One day, Maria disappeared without leaving any traces, and the possibility of finding her seemed impossible. He questioned whether she understood the depth of her sin, but her disappearance spoke for itself. On December 24th, he abandons his diary, filled with confessions to be found. He also leaves behind his protective necklace, so whoever finds it is safeguarded from the dangers of that land. He knows that the true evil is him, William Brennan, the flesh and blood monster. Kara doesn't believe that the necklace offers protection, as only tragedies have occurred for her. Later, the creature observes her from a distance, and Kara decides to go out to record the experience. She tries to get a little closer, but the creature stands up before her, prompting her to return in panic to the cabin. Kara wakes up on the 18th and starts a new recording, stating that the creature seems to have gone away. She feels a bit more relaxed but wishes to return home. She asks where the rescue team is and declares that she will die if no one comes to get her. In a new outburst of despair, she grabs the picture of her daughter, and as she calms down, screams that she will not die. Determined to protect that place, she begins to set traps. At night, she finishes setting up defenses around the camp. Kara explains how her traps work and says that if the creature chases her, she will use her bow. She states it is the only thing she can do for now, and then goes back inside. As she moves away, we notice the struck tree begins to bleed, but she doesn't realize it. During the night, she can't sleep for fear of the creature and thinks she should have listened to her daughter and stayed home. At that moment, she begins to perceive the creature's footsteps and panics. Candace and her partner arrive at the location, but she prefers to go alone in search of Kara. She asks her partner to notify the central base about their arrival, and so it is done. Kara is inspecting her traps and realizes that the monster is still nearby. This time, she manages to see it in person and, terrified, runs desperately away. She ends up finding Candace, but suddenly, her partner is pulled away and brutally murdered. Kara then runs to the cabin to grab a flare. With it in hand, she returns and starts looking for Candace in the forest. However, the creature appears behind her, and in shock, Kara throws herself to the ground. The monster approaches, and when about to attack her, sees the picture of her daughter and decides to disappear. Kara opens her eyes, unsure of what happened. She finds the paramedics' vehicle, but discovers the other woman dead. Kara gets into the vehicle and stashes her daughter's photo before leaving that cursed place.